The incredible story of Starbucks began with three friends who simply loved coffee. They each put in $1,350, borrowed another $5,000, and in 1971 opened their first store in Seattle, Washington. It didn't look like anything special, but this is where everything started. They were inspired by Alfred Peet, who taught them his methods of roasting coffee beans. The name Starbucks partly comes from the character Starbuck in the book Moby Dick. Although there's another version, they were looking for words starting with "acete" because it sounded strong, and they found the name of an old town called Starbo. It seems like a small detail, but details like this build a brand. The logo became a stylized image of a siren, a mythical creature that attracts sailors. And that wasn't random either. The first store sold only whole roasted coffee beans and didn't serve drinks, only samples for tasting. Today it sounds strange, but back then it was normal. At first they bought beans from Peet's and later switched to direct sourcing from farmers. On the other side of this story appears the man who would change everything, Howard Schultz. And this is where things start to get interesting. In 1981, while working as a salesman, he noticed that this small chain of stores was ordering an unusually large number of coffee machines. It felt strange, too strange to ignore. Curious, he traveled to Seattle. The moment he opened the door to Starbucks, he was hit by a rich coffee aroma. And that moment changed a lot. Inside, there were bags of beans from all over the world. Ethiopia, Kenya, Costa Rica, Colombia. This wasn't just a store, it was something different. He realized that people loved the process of making coffee and that something special was happening there. After tasting the coffee, he was so impressed that he immediately started asking about the beans, the roasting, and the methods. Starbucks used a darker roast to bring out flavor, which was very different from what he was used to. Everything he had drunk before suddenly felt ordinary. And right then, he had an idea. One that would change everything. He visited their roasting facility, met the founders, and became even more convinced there was real potential here. But there was one problem. At that time, Starbucks had no plans to become an empire. The founders didn't chase mass appeal. They wanted to serve a small group of true coffee lovers. Back then, no one saw a huge business in this. It was just coffee, and nothing more. A year later, Schultz left his stable, high-paying job, and joined Starbucks because he believed it could become something bigger. Most people didn't understand it, but he saw further. He worked with huge energy and kept pushing ideas, but the real turning point came after his trip to Italy. And this is where everything changed. In Italy, coffee wasn't just a drink, it was part of life. Small cafes on every corner, people talking, laughing, baristas knowing customers by name. And that's when he realized the problem in America wasn't the coffee, it was how it was served. When he came back, he suggested selling not only beans but coffee drinks. It sounded obvious, but he was rejected. And this is where the real conflict begins. The founders didn't want to turn Starbucks into a cafe chain. And the irony is, if they had said yes back then, Starbucks might have become something completely different. After a lot of pressure, they allowed him to open one espresso bar. And it worked. Customer numbers increased. But even that didn't convince them. They didn't want to change. And that became the breaking point. Schultz got frustrated and decided to leave. It was a risk, a big one. He wanted to build his own coffee shop chain, but he needed serious money. So he started looking for investors, again and again. And every time he heard the same answer, no. 217 times. It sounded like the end, but it was just the beginning. Anyone else would have quit, but not him. Eventually, he found support. And here's the irony again. Some of the first people to believe in him were the same Starbucks founders. They didn't believe in the idea, but they believed in him. In 1986, he opened his own coffee shops and they quickly became popular. Then in 1987, something unexpected happened. Starbucks, the company that rejected his idea, was put up for sale. And this time, he was the one making the decision. He bought it, merged everything, and started building a new kind of company. In 1992, Starbucks went public. And from that moment, real growth began. The company expanded, opened new locations, and experimented with new products. In 1993, they acquired a coffee chain, and with it came a new drink, Frappuccino. This became another major step forward. In 1994, severe frost in Brazil caused coffee prices to spike. The situation could have been critical, but Starbucks was prepared. Thanks to inventory and long-term contracts, the company made it through and kept growing. In 1996, Starbucks opened its first store in Japan. This wasn't just another market, it was proof. The model worked beyond the United States. And from there, expansion accelerated. New countries, new cities, new opportunities. But the real idea behind all of this wasn't just coffee, and this is the key. Schultz wanted to create a third place, not home, not work, something in between, a place where people could simply exist. And this is where small details started to matter. For example, writing names on cups. It seems like nothing, but it changes everything. In that moment, you're not just a customer, you become part of the place. And that's what made Starbucks unique. Not just coffee, but atmosphere, a feeling. Today, Starbucks has thousands of locations around the world and serves millions of people every day. But if you go back to the beginning, it all started with 3 friends, a small store, and one simple idea. And that idea changed everything.